I'm going to swear you in.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this trial will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
All right, you can lower your hand. May need to adjust the microphone. It is pretty powerful,
Okay.
but make sure we can hear you.
Okay.
Can you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Okay. My name is Joe David Munoz Jr. JoeDavidMunozJr.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple of instructions, okay? Lady in front of you is taking a record. Make sure you wait for questions to be asked in their entirety before you respond. You can't get more than one voice at a time. Make sure that all answers are verbal. She cannot get the head shakes and head nods. And if at any time a lawyer stands up from either side and objects, do not answer until we tell you whether or not you can, okay?
Okay.
All right, stay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can everybody hear me okay? Good morning.
Good morning.
You've already told the jury your name, but let's talk a little bit about your background. Do you currently live in San Antonio?
Yes, ma'am. I do.
How long have you lived in San Antonio?
Pretty much my whole life.
Okay, do you mind saying how long that is?
About 50 years.
Okay. Do you have any family who lives with you in San Antonio?
Yes.
And who is that?
My mother, Isabel Paz. My daughter, Emma Munoz. And I got my sister, Dominga, her husband, Andy, and her kids and grandkids.
Full house?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you mentioned your daughter Emma, and what's her full name again?
Emma Lynn Munoz,
And how old is Emma?
14.
And who is Emma's mother?
Elizabeth Contreras.
Elizabeth Contreras. And so let's talk to the jury about your relationship with Elizabeth. When did you and Elizabeth Contreras meet? Very first time y'all met?
In 1997.
97. About how old were you in 1997?
23.
About how old was Elizabeth in 1997?
19.
Okay, so young. When did y'all meet, or where did y'all meet?
At my work, I worked at Sam's Club, and she was a Nabisco vendor. I worked overnight as a stalker.
The two of you met at work.
Yes.
How did your relationship start?
Just when we met and we started talking, became friends, and she ended up leaving the company, so we exchanged phone numbers and started from there.
And so was there a time whenever your relationship became more than just friends?
Yes.
About when was that?
Back in November 97.
97.
Yes.
And I guess, did you and Elizabeth ever get married?
Yes, we did.
When did y'all get married?
2008.
2009?
8.
2008. And when you guys were married in 2008, did y'all live together here in San Antonio?
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess at some point you guys had Emma.
Yes.
And when was Emma born?
2010.
2010.
Yes. December 27, 2010.
And so let's talk about back then at the beginning of your relationship in 2008 through 2010. What was the nature of your relationship? How was your marriage in general?
It was good. It was good at the time. Yes.
And did that ever change your relationship with Elizabeth?
Yes.
When did it change?
I'd say around 2011.
And don't have to go into specifics, but just in general, the nature of your relationship in 2011, how did it change?
We just separated and then began divorce.
Y'all separated and got divorced.
Yes.
And then after you guys got divorced, was that in 2011?
Yes.
Did the two of you stop living together?
Yes, we did.
But did you maintain custody of Emma together?
Yes, we did.
So were y'all still parenting, I guess?
Yes, we.
So in 2011, you're divorced, but are you still occasionally seeing each other to share custody?
Yes, ma'am, we were.
Was Elizabeth still living in San Antonio at that time?
She had moved to Hawaii for a couple months, and then back to Tucson, Arizona after.
So she moved to Hawaii for a little bit and then to Tucson, Arizona. Do you remember about how long and what year she lived in Tucson, Arizona?
I would say about 2012, give or take.
And did she eventually move back to San Antonio?
Yes, she did.
Well, and then in 2012, when she moved to Tucson, Arizona, how did y'all go about seeing Emma?
She actually drove or flew Emma back to San Antonio so I could have her for my weekends.
So y'all were still in communication and still seeing each other just in order to parent Emma?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And when she moved back to San Antonio, what was the nature of your relationship with Elizabeth at that time?
We were speaking. We were friends. I helped her get an apartment for her and Alma.
And so, was there a time that she began a relationship with another man that you know?
Yes.
And who was that?
Guadalupe Contreras?
And do you see Guadalupe Contreras here today?
Yes, I do.
Can you please point to him and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing?
He's over here with a light blue polo shirt and khaki pants.
And just for the record, may it reflect that the witness has identified the defendant. So do you remember when you first found out that Elizabeth and Guadalupe had begun a relationship?
Yes.
And what were your just general thoughts and feelings about the two of them having a relationship?
I was just upset, very upset.
And can you tell me why? Why were you upset about that?
Because I knew Guadalupe and I was afraid that he would mistreat Emma.
And I guess, did Elizabeth and Guadalupe end up getting married?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember about when they got married?
I believe it was 2016.
2016.
Hmm.
And so at this time, you're saying generally you didn't love the idea of the relationship, but were you and Elizabeth still maintaining custody and sharing parenting duties of Emma at that time?
Yes, we were.
And so you were in pretty regular communication with Elizabeth in 2016.
Yes, we were.
And was there a point in time when when Elizabeth's relationship with Guadalupe changed?
Yes.
When was that?
I believe it was 2016, like early November.
And what happened with that relationship?
They ended up separating.
And where did Elizabeth move to after she separated?
She moved in with me and Emma.
So she's living with you and Emma, and is this like late 2016?
Yes.
And who's living in the home at that time in late 2016 when Elizabeth moves in with you?
It was me, my mother, Elizabeth Paz, and my stepsister, Alyssa, and Emma Lynn Munoz.
So was the nature of your relationship with Elizabeth, was it changing at that time?
Yes.
What was it changing into?
We were getting closer and thinking about getting back together.
And what were your feelings about getting back together with her at that time?
They were good because I wanted both parents and Emma's life. I mean, as far as living together.
And then how old was Emma at the time?
I'm sorry?
How old was Emma at that time in early 2017?
She was 7.
7 years old. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Joe, I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 1 and 2. Can you please look at them and tell us if you recognize States Exhibit 1 and 2?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize them?
One photo has Elizabeth Contreras with our daughter Emma Lynn Munoz. And the other one is the three of us, myself and Elizabeth Contreras and Emma.
Okay, and so do States Exhibit 1 and 2, do they accurately represent what Elizabeth looked like back in late 2016, early 2017?
Yes, I do.
State moves to admit States 1 and 2.
No objections.
Right, they're admitted?
Do we publish them?
Yes.
Is it displaying on everybody's screen?
Okay.
So States Exhibit 1, just describe for the jury, who are we seeing in States Exhibit 1?
Elizabeth Contreras and Emma Lynn Munoz.
And then in States Exhibit 2, who do we see in States Exhibit 2?
Myself, Joe Munoz, Elizabeth Contreras, and Emma Lynn Munoz.
Okay, and so it looks like maybe in States Exhibit 2, Emma's holding something. Do you remember about what time of year this was in States Exhibit 2?
It was 2016. She was receiving a certificate for completing a school year.
So in 2017, where was Elizabeth working at that time?
She was working at a Baptist hospital on the southwest side of town.
And what were her hours like back then for work?
She was working from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Right, so she was working a night schedule.
Yes.
And what was your work schedule like back then?
I was usually working from 4 to 4.
In the morning?
Yes, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And so, I guess, who watched Emma when you guys were both at work?
My mother did.
So let's go back in time to August of 2017. Was there a time that, Elizabeth went to work back in August of 2017 that led to something that concerned you?
Yes.
Okay, so just tell the jury briefly what happened.
She said she had to go to work in the evening. It was probably about 10 p.m. to get her work schedule.
Okay, so August 2017, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You thought she was going to work to get her schedule?
Yes.
And what time was it again?
About 10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Yes.
And was that a normal occurrence for her to leave around 10 p.m. at night to go and check her work schedule?
No.
Was it normal?
No.
So did you think anything about it, or what did you think about it?
I was just concerned. I was wondering why she couldn't call to get her schedule. But she said she had to speak to her supervisor. And then being out late at night to me wasn't that safe.
But she went?
Yes.
Okay. And then what did you do after she left?
I just put Emma to bed, and then I went to bed myself.
And then at some point in time, did you wake up and discover anything?
Yes.
And what did you discover?
That she hadn't gotten home yet.
That who had not gotten?
Elizabeth Contreras.
About what time was that when you discovered she was not?
2:30 a.m.
Joe, I'm gonna just slow you down just a little bit.
Okay.
You're talking over me, so let
Okay.
me just fully finish my question and then begin.
Okay.
I know that you know what happened, but the jury needs to hear what
Okay.
happened.
Sorry.
So tell me again what time it was whenever you woke up and discovered Elizabeth was not there.
2:30 a.m.
And was this a normal occurrence for Elizabeth?
No.
And had you received any communication from her, either by text or phone call, letting you know that she was going to be late or that she was not coming home?
No.
So, I guess what are you thinking at this point in time?
I was just concerned that she hadn't gotten home yet.
So, because you were concerned, did you do anything? Did you reach out to anybody? Did you talk to anybody?
I started calling her and texting her, asking her where she was at, and she wouldn't respond.
So you called and texted her, but she did not respond. Did you call or text anybody else?
Yes.
Who else did you call?
Her sister, Jennifer, to ask her if she had received any message from her or spoken to her.
About how many hours at this point in time goes by where you have not heard from her or seen Elizabeth?
Probably about 5 hours.
And then at any point in time, does anybody get law enforcement involved?
Myself.
Okay, what did you do?
We just called, actually it was myself and her mother, Janet Sierra.
I'm gonna slow you down. You said her mother who?
Janet Sierra.
Okay. What did y'all do?
We called law enforcement.
And were you as a family doing anything else in order to try to find Elizabeth?
We were just calling and trying to figure out whether we needed to go out and look for her.
And so was there a point in time where you received some information and you thought maybe you might find some information about where she might be?
Yes.
And what did you do with that information?
I shared it with the family and tried to go out to that location.
Do you remember where that was?
Almost Park.
Okay. And Almost Park, Did you find anything when you went out to the Almost Park area?
No, we didn't.
Was there another location that you went to?
Over off of 37, South 37 and Southton Road.
South 37
Southton Road.
and did you find anything when you got to that location?
Found my vehicle.
And so, when Elizabeth left, well, I guess at this point in time, how much time has gone by since Elizabeth left at 10 o'clock in the evening to go check her work schedule by the time you find your car on the side of 37?
Oh, it was a week.
You think a week?
A week.
Okay. So, you find your car, was that the vehicle that Elizabeth had left in that night at 10 p.m. to check her schedule?
Yes.
And when you found the vehicle, did you report it to anybody?
I called law enforcement.
And did they show up to the scene?
Yes.
And did you give a statement?
I just gave them permission to look at my vehicle.
I'm sorry?
Gave them permission to look at my vehicle.
Okay, so you gave them permission to look in your vehicle.
Yes.
Did you do anything to the vehicle whenever it was on the side of the road?
No.
Did you leave it how you found it?
Yes.
And then you let law enforcement take over from there?
Yes, I did.
Who else was with you while you were at the car off of the side of 37?
My sister, Dominga Contreras, Janet, Sarah, her mother, sister Jennifer, and her sister Rachel.
So at this point in time, you said that there's several days since she left your home to go check her work schedule. You're finding your car that she left on the side of the road. What are you thinking now?
That someone took her.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness again?
Yes.
So I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 3, 4, and 5. Do you recognize what is depicted in State's Exhibit 3, 4, and 5?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And have you seen the items that are depicted in these photos before?
Yes.
Okay. And generally speaking, what are in these photos?
Two of them have my vehicle. It's a Hyundai Santa Fe. And the third one has Elizabeth's purse with belongings in it.
Okay. And so do State's Exhibit 3, 4, and 5, knowing that you did not take these photos, do they accurately represent your vehicle and what you saw when you went out to the side of the road on 37?
Yes, they do.
State moves to admit 3, 4, and 5. State's Exhibit 3. Can you see State's Exhibit 3 on your screen?
Yes.
And so tell the jury what is depicted in State's Exhibit 3.
That's my vehicle, the Hyundai Santa Fe.
So this is your vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this the same vehicle that Elizabeth left in that evening in August of 2017?
Yes, it is.
And then State's Exhibit 4. Can you see State's Exhibit 4?
It's my vehicle also, Hyundai Santa Fe.
And then State's Exhibit 5. What do we see in State's Exhibit 5?
Elizabeth Contreras' purse with belongings in it.
Okay. And at this point in time, you've known Elizabeth for many years, right?
Yes.
Tell the jury, was Elizabeth one of those types of people who always had their purse on them?
Yes, she always had it with her.
So was it unusual for you to see her purse sitting in the car left like that?
Yes, it was.
So, with regard to the vehicle, was law enforcement there at the vehicle with you?
Yes.
And did you allow them to take the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And with law enforcement, was there anything else that you gave or did with law enforcement?
No. Just gave them permission to take it.
Okay. What about another day? Like maybe the next day or a couple of days later, was there any other things that you did with regard to law enforcement?
I gave them a DNA sample.
And what about, did you talk to them?
Yes, I did.
And I guess without saying what you said, did you essentially kind of tell them what you told the jury so far?
I'm sorry?
Did you tell the law enforcement, the police officers, some of the same things that you've told the jury so far?
Yes, I did.
Now, at that, you've already testified that you were trying to call and text Elizabeth when she did not come home that evening. How many cell phones did Elizabeth have back in 2017 in August?
She had two.
And how did you feel about her having two cell phones?
I didn't feel it was necessary to have two. I mean, paying for an extra line that we didn't need.
And did you know, if you did or not, did you know if she was still communicating, she being Elizabeth, if she was continuing to communicate with Guadalupe Contreras back in August of 2017?
Yes,
You did know that?
yes.
And what were your thoughts about her still communicating with her?
I was upset because they separated, so I didn't see a reason why they were still communicating.
And you were upset. Did you react in any way after finding out and becoming upset?
I was just upset that she had the phone and I wanted to get rid of it.
Did you ever have any words or interactions with Guadalupe about the communication that was continuing between the two of them?
Yes.
What was the nature of that communication?
We got into arguments and said some words to each other. I threatened them.
Did you ever act on any of that?
No, ma'am.
So other than letting law enforcement have your vehicle, giving them the DNA and talking to them, was there anything else that I missed that you did for law enforcement with regard to where Elizabeth may have been at that time?
That was it.
So, you know, Joe, we all know why we're here today. But that evening in August, when Elizabeth left the house around 10 p.m., is that the last time you saw your child's mother, Elizabeth Contreras?
Yes, that was.
Was that the last time your daughter saw her mother?
Yes.
Pass the witness room.
So she had a phone that she used for you and a phone that she used for Guadalupe, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And when she, on the phone for Guadalupe, she had like a headset she wore around her neck, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And were you surprised to learn that a lot of times she would leave that line open for hours at a time? Did you learn that later, that her record showed that when she was home arguing with you, he was listening? Her phone record showed she would be on the phone for like 6 hours, 8 hours at a time and leaving the phone open, and he was listening to everything y'all were talking about. Did you learn that later?
No.
Would it surprise you to learn that was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And your threats to him, when were you threatening him? How were you threatening him? In person, over the phone?
Over the phone, text.
What was she wearing that night?
She was wearing some, what do you call them, stretchy pants, black stretchy pants with a black V-neck t-shirt.
Black stretchy pants and a black V-neck t-shirt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that what she wore when she left?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, today you said that you woke up at 2:30 and found out she was missing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
But you remember talking to the police?
That morning.
You remember when you gave an interview with the police, right?
Yes.
And that was like right after this happened, right?
Around.
And when you talked to them, you told them you woke up at 4 in the morning, not 2:30. You remember?
No, I don't remember.
So are you sure you woke up at 2:30, or could it have been later?
No, I woke up at 2:30. I had to be at work at 4 a.m.
Okay. Why'd she drive your car?
She just wanted to drive it. She liked driving the SUV.
Well, she had a car, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
What was her car?
It was a Hyundai Accent.
And that car was at the house, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
So that night, if somebody wanted to go somewhere while she was gone, there was a car for that person to drive. Like if you wanted to go somewhere that night, you had a car, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, your mother was there. She had a car, or her mother. There was another car. There were 2 cars there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about your phone? When did the cops take your phone? We know that they checked Elizabeth's phone. When did they check your phone to see where you were that night?
When they interviewed me,
They took your phone?
they checked it.
They did?
Well, he asked me for the phone, but they didn't like that physically take it away from me.
They did take it away from
No.
you and, okay. So they never took your phone, as far as you know, checked where you were to see what you were doing that night? Okay. Now, you talked about you knew to go to Almost Park, and that's because at 5:30 the next morning there was a Facebook post or something, right?
Yes, sir.
So you wake up at 2:30, and then at 5:30 in the morning, there's a Facebook post about her phone sends a Facebook signal or something,
Yes.
and that was at Almost Park, and that's
Yes,
why
sir.
you went there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was, you're certain that was 5:30?
That's around 5:30, yes.
Now, also, you said that when eventually someone told you about the car being found, you said you drove over to where the car was.
Yes, sir.
And where were you when you found out where the car was?
I was still around the area of Almost Park.
You were still looking around Almost Park, hanging out over there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you go straight to the car, or did you go somewhere else first?
Straight to the car.
You didn't go to a gas station first?
No.
Now, since it was your car, you had spare keys, right?
Yes.
Okay, did you have the keys on you?
No, sir.
And the car wasn't damaged, was it? Was anything wrong with the car, was there?
No, sir.
You didn't notice anything unusual about the car?
No.
Okay. Were you surprised to learn that she had been talking to Guadalupe since about February?
Yes.
You were surprised?
For the length of time that they were speaking, yes.
And were you surprised to learn that he was going to put her back on his insurance?
I believe she was still on his insurance.
That she had been to his work the day before about getting back on his insurance? You learned that, right?
Yes, after.
When you met with the police, you were, one of the things y'all talked about was the fact that you were kind of confused because they told you her phone was the signal was popping up all over town. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that information came from the police, right?
Yes,
They
sir.
were looking at her cell phone and it was showing up all over town.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In your gut, did you know she wasn't going to the hospital to check her work schedule?
Yeah. Yes, I had that feeling.
Did she have a computer at home?
She had a laptop.
Laptop?
Yes, sir.
Did you have access to it?
No, sir.
Yeah, and you and her had been arguing about all this, hadn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you guys had argued at some points to the extent that she talked about leaving you?
Not leaving.
Well, when you talked to the police, you specifically said, we argued so much that, she said, well, I'm gonna, Emma's going with me. Remember that part?
Yeah, we've always.
If an argument leads to a statement that she's going with me, that would infer that we're going to separate and I'm taking Emma?
Well, if she was to move to stay somewhere else, yes.
And she left at that time of night. This wasn't the first time she's left at that time of night.
She just to go to work.
Well, and you said to the police she would go shopping sometime, remember?
Yes.
And you thought that was kind of weird.
Well, late in the evening, 8,
Yeah.
9.
And we know, or, I mean, they know, I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but Elizabeth and Guadalupe had met up before in the middle of the night, at least a couple of times. So, I mean, would it surprise you that some of these shopping trips weren't really shopping trips?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I know it sucks to admit it, but I mean,
Yeah.
she'd been hooking up with him, right?
Mhm.
Okay. I had nothing further, Judge.
Briefly redirect me.
Yes.
So Joe, with regard to whether it was 2:30 or 4 o'clock, did you wake up at both times, or explain the difference between the 2:30 and the 4 o'clock?
I woke up at 2:30, but my comments were I had to be at work at 4. That's why I woke up at 2:30. But when I woke up at 2:30 and I noticed Elizabeth hadn't returned home, I stayed up and kept calling and texting her.
Did you end up going to work that day?
No,
Now, what side of town did you all live on at that time?
on northwest side of town.
About how far away from where your house was, the northwest side of town, was it for you to drive over to the Almost area, where you went to look for her off the Almost side?
Yeah, it was probably about a 20-30 minute drive.
So not close to there?
No,
So would it have been weird for her to kind of be on that side of town at that
yes, it
time?
was.
Now, Mr. Bonk asked you if you noticed anything unusual about the car. And obviously you've seen the pictures of the car, it looks in fairly good condition, but were you able to kind of see anything on or in the car that kind of stood out to you?
In the front of the vehicle, the bumper, I noticed some grass, like the vehicle had been driven into tall grass.
And had you driven the car off-road or in grass at any
No,
point?
I never did.
And I think Mr. Buck asked you about, were you concerned about whether Elizabeth was going to take Emma away from you? But y'all had previously divorced and separated in 2011, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there any point in time during that separation that Elizabeth prevented you from having a relationship with Emma?
No, she did.
And I think you testified, Mr. Buck asked you that that Elizabeth preferred driving your vehicle even though she had her own vehicle.
Yes.
Do you know why she preferred it, if you did?
She just said she liked driving an SUV. Her car was small.
Pass the witness room.
No further questions, Judge.